I'm frequently asked when you will die. Not you, collectively, rather you, individually. Of course, I don't know when you will die, but I have a pretty good idea the means by which we will lose habitat for our species and ultimately all life on Earth. This is a process that is already underway. It will continue until we are all dead. Without habitat, we will die. As a simple thought experiment, imagine how long the folks at the International Space Station will live without materials transported there from Earth. We haven't figured out how to secure potable water in space. Ditto for growing food in sufficient quantities to sustain civilization. Referring to his work in theoretical physics that led to the creation and subsequent use of the atomic bomb, Albert Einstein famously said, quote, "If I had known they were going to do this, I would have become a shoemaker." End quote. A gentle man, Einstein incorrectly believed that his research on relativity and quantum mechanics would be used to benefit humankind. Politicians had other ideas. As usual, the politicians won. As usual, the rest of us lost. As I have pointed out in this space with a video titled Means of Extinction, Nuclear Facilities Implode, the use of nuclear power facilities to boil water poses an existential threat not only to our species, but to all life on Earth. The uncontrolled meltdown of nuclear facilities will cause stratospheric ozone to be stripped away, thereby leading to exceptionally rapid heating of this planet. The horrible results will include lethal sunburn within a matter of minutes, not to mention loss of habitat for life forms on this planet. Of course, stripping away stratospheric ozone is not the only means of extinction for our species and others. Perhaps the most rapid means by which we are driving ourselves and the rest of the species on Earth to extinction is the ongoing and accelerating rapid rate of environmental change. Our near-term extinction will drive an even faster rate of environmental change than we are already causing due to the loss of aerosol masking. I've mentioned this idea of aerosol masking and its loss frequently in this space. You and I had no influence on the creation and implementation of nuclear power. Nuclear power was done to us, not for us. You and I have very little influence on aerosol masking. Again, burning fossil fuels is something over which we have little control. Even if we stopped tomorrow by living off-grid and pursuing a minimalist lifestyle, there are plenty of people to take up where you leave off. Having personally lived off-grid for a decade, I know all too well the minimal impact a minimalist has on society. In other words, our extinction was baked, literally, into the proverbial cake without our approval. I suspect very few people watching this video were alive when the first nuclear power plants were built in the late 1930s and early 1940s. If you were alive, you were undoubtedly too young to slow the ongoing march of nuclear power, then and now. The same logic applies to the use of fossil fuels and loss of aerosol masking. As individuals, we have little choice regarding how to live within society. I cannot fault soccer moms for driving their kids to play. I cannot fault anybody raised in this suburban disaster for continuing to live within societal bounds. We're too late to stop nuclear power, which is poised to cause the extinction of all life on Earth. It's worse than that, of course. We were all born into a set of living arrangements that predates our existence. Industrial civilization arose in 1750, plus or minus 15 minutes, when we began to extract and burn fossil fuels at the scale of society. Coal, oil, and natural gas make our lives easier. The adverse consequences were not clear until long after we had committed to those consequences. As with the implementation of nuclear power, you and I had no say over the implementation of this set of living arrangements. Industrial civilization happened to us a long time ago, and we had no say in the matter. It's worse than that, of course. Civilizations arose long before the Industrial Revolution. Humans began growing, storing, and distributing grains at a large scale several thousand years ago. Doing so enabled communities to get through periods that previously caused starvation. It was so convenient for the individuals. Perhaps most importantly, the ability to grow, store, and distribute grains at scale allowed a vast majority of the food to be put under lock and key. The power exacted by one or a few individuals was abrupt and comprehensive. The human transition from a culture without rulers to a culture in which rulers were essentially required was quite abrupt. As you might have noticed, contemporary rulers don't necessarily have the best interests of the populace in mind. As with the implementation of nuclear power and the advent of industrial civilization, you and I had no say over the creation of civilizations developed long ago. Civilizations happened to us a long time ago. It's worse than that, of course. The cognitive revolution occurred at least 30,000 years ago. As one consequence, Homo sapiens concluded that we were different from and superior to other organisms. Once you conclude superiority, you can rationalize anything. As American science fiction writer Robert Heinlein wrote in his 1955 book, Tunnel in the Sky, quote, "Man is not a rational animal, he is a rationalizing animal," end quote. I suspect you are familiar with the line, "It's all over but the crying." This line originates in the titular 1947 song by the Ink Spots. One could conclude, correctly in my view, that our near-term extinction is a foregone conclusion. One could also conclude, incorrectly in my opinion, that there is nothing to be done about our near-term extinction. It's not all over but the crying. It's all over but the living. Better yet, it's all over but the loving. After all, at the age of extinction, only love remains.